Winning at anything, and I mean anything, is a skill. And like every skill, there's a way to learn it, even if right now you have no idea where to start. You probably know someone who seems to be genuinely building something, moving forward, figuring things out, getting somewhere. And you ask yourself how? How did they go from wherever they were to actually winning at this? Because you're not less capable than them. You know what discipline looks like. You know what consistency looks like. And still something isn't clicking. There's always a reason it starts later. And later has been the answer for so long. It's starting to feel like a permanent address. So here's what I'm going to do. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down the exact way people actually win at their goals, their work, their life, so that by the end of this, you don't just feel inspired, you know what to do. Ryan Holiday in Ego is the Enemy makes an observation that stung when I first read it and still does. He says that the ego's greatest trick is convincing you that thinking about doing something is the same as doing it. That the person who spends hours consuming content about success, planning their future, imagining their transformation, that person feels like they're working on themselves. And in reality, they're doing none of those things. That's a brutal thing to say. It's also accurate for a lot of people. The first mechanic of actually winning at anything is what I'd call honest location. You have to know where you are without the softening language people use to make their situation more comfortable to describe. Not I'm working on getting fit when you haven't exercised in 4 months, or I'm figuring out my career when you haven't taken a single step toward anything. Just here is where I actually am. Here is what I'm actually doing. Here is the gap between what I say and what I do. This sounds like self-criticism, but it's not. It's navigation. A GPS that doesn't know your actual location can't give you useful directions. It'll route you confidently toward the wrong destination. The same thing happens when you operate from a flattering but inaccurate picture of where you are. The plan looks reasonable, the effort feels genuine, and the results don't come because the plan was built on fiction. The second mechanic is one that people intellectually agree with and practically ignore: direction before speed. Most people who feel lost try to solve it by moving faster, more hustle, consume more content, more productivity hacks, more goals written down. It feels like progress, sometimes it even looks like progress, but movement in the wrong direction or no particular direction just gets you somewhere you didn't want to be more efficiently. Let me explain what I mean. Let's say someone decides they want to start a YouTube channel, so they spend the first week choosing a name, a few days designing a logo, then they're going down a rabbit hole of videos about how the algorithm works, what niche is most profitable, what equipment they should buy. A month passes and they're still researching, still feeling like they're almost ready. Meanwhile, if they had just started uploading even with a broad idea of their niche, they would have figured out along the way what topics they enjoy making, what their audience actually responds to, and gradually gotten more specific about what works for them and what doesn't. That whole process of narrowing down, finding your angle, understanding your audience, it happens through making videos, not through preparing to make them. You learn how YouTube works by being on YouTube, not by studying it from the outside. And the same is the case for the other skills that you want to learn. Viktor Frankl wrote that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose our response to any situation. In other words, even when we can't control what happens to us, we can still control how we react. But there's an important point here. Freedom by itself isn't always enough. If you don't know what matters to you, what you're aiming for, or what kind of life you're trying to build, then having lots of choices can actually make you feel lost. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads with 100 different paths in front of you. You're completely free to choose any path you want. That sounds great, but if you have no destination in mind, how do you decide which path to take? The freedom to choose isn't very helpful because you have no meaningful way to choose between the options. That's what purpose and values do. They give direction to your freedom. Once you know where you want to go, choosing a path becomes much easier. Figuring out direction doesn't require a grand revelation. It doesn't require knowing your life's purpose with certainty. It requires something simpler and more honest. What do you actually want your life to look like in 2 years? And I'm not talking about that Instagram version, but the real version, the daily texture of it, the work, the relationships, the feeling you want to wake up with. Get specific enough that you could describe it to someone else without using words like successful or happy or free. Those words mean nothing. The specifics mean everything. Once you have a rough idea of where you want to go in life, choices become much easier. When a new opportunity comes along, you can ask yourself, does this help me get closer to the life I want? If the answer is yes, you move forward. If not, you let it go. You don't need a perfect plan. Most people don't have one, but having some direction makes a huge difference. It helps you use your time better and gives your everyday actions a sense of purpose. The third mechanic is the one that separates the people who actually get somewhere from the ones who stay in permanent preparation mode. It's the willingness to be bad at something in public, in front of people, with real consequences. This is where most people stop, because the version of winning they've been sold is clean, confident from the start, competent quickly, moving forward with minimal embarrassing detours. And the reality of building anything real looks almost nothing like that. It looks like trying something and being mediocre at it, putting work out and having it land badly, making a call that turns out to be wrong, getting feedback that's uncomfortable because you are not good at it, but it doesn't define you. You can learn along the way, going back and adjusting, and then adjusting again. Matthew Syed wrote an entire book, Bounce, about how expertise actually forms, and the core finding is that the people who become genuinely good at anything went through longer, more uncomfortable periods of being bad at it than the people who gave up. The discomfort isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. The discomfort is the path. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is crossed through repeated contact with your own limitations, not around them. Think about the lotus flower. It doesn't grow in clean, crystal clear water. It grows in thick, muddy water. To become the beautiful flower we see on the surface, it first has to grow through all that mud. The interesting part is that the mud isn't something the lotus tries to avoid. The mud is exactly what helps it grow. Life works in a similar way. We often think our struggles, mistakes, setbacks, and awkward beginnings are getting in the way of our success, but many times those difficult moments are actually the process that shapes us. When you look at people who are successful today, you're only seeing the flower. What you don't see is the mud they had to grow through. You don't see the years of learning, failing, feeling unsure of themselves, or working when nobody was paying attention. The practical version of this is embarrassingly simple. Pick one thing, one skill, one area of your life that matters the most, and do it badly and consistently until you do it less badly. Don't wait until you're ready to do it well. You'll wait forever. Start where you are with what you have and let the doing teach you what the preparation never could. There's a concept in systems thinking called a feedback loop, a system where the output feeds back into the input, either amplifying or correcting. Winning in the real sense is mostly a matter of building positive feedback loops in the areas of your life that matter. Small action produces small result. Small result produces information, what worked, what didn't, what to adjust. Adjustment produces slightly better action. Better action produces slightly better result. This cycle, run consistently over months and years, produces outcomes that look disproportionate to the effort involved at any single point. From the outside, it looks like someone got lucky or had a gift. From the inside, it was just the loop running long enough. The reason most people don't experience this is that they break the loop too early. The first few cycles produce almost nothing visible. The result is small, the feedback is discouraging, the effort seems disproportionate to the return. And so they stop or they switch to a different loop, which also produces almost nothing in its early cycles, and they stop again. The pattern repeats indefinitely. James Clear describes this as the plateau of latent potential, the long flat stretch before the results become visible, where all the compounding is happening invisibly, and the only evidence it's working is that you're still doing it. Most people leave during this phase. The ones who don't are not more talented or more disciplined by nature. They just understand at some level that the flat stretch is part of it, and they stay. There is something that I think matters most and gets said least. Being lost is not a permanent condition. It's a temporary state that becomes permanent only if you keep treating it as a verdict instead of a starting point. Every person who is genuinely winning at something right now, building something real, moving in a direction that matters to them, was at some point exactly where you might be right now, uncertain behind where they thought they'd be, unsure whether the gap was closable. The difference between the ones who closed it and the ones who didn't was not talent, timing, or luck, though all of those played a role. The difference was that at some point they stopped auditing their situation and started moving inside it. They made a decision, probably imperfect, probably slightly before they felt ready, and they started the loop. That decision is available to you right now. The direction doesn't have to be certain. The plan doesn't have to be complete. The only thing that has to happen is that you close the gap even slightly between the person you've been performing and the person you're actually trying to become. Winning at anything starts with one honest move in the right direction. That's always been the whole thing. This was all for today. See you next time.